Welcome to the very first in my miniature series. These episodes are going to be around 5 minutes long, and we're going to take a very specific topic, technique or tip each time and just spend 5-ish minutes delving into that. And today we're going to look at the physiological sigh. I know I've shared this with you before, but today we're going to look into why it works, and I'll explain a little bit more and also share the actual practice with you. Enjoy!
It's nearly 10 years since my burnout experience, and I believe that it wasn't necessary for me to burn out, and it's not necessary for you either. In this podcast, my guests and I share our real-life experiences with burnout. We get into the science of stress and share actionable tips on how to prevent burnout and how to recover from it. I'm Holden, ex-management consultant and burnout survivor. I work with management consultants to help them avoid and overcome burnout. I help them to get intentional about their choices, rebuild their energy, and embed new healthy habits so that they can get back to loving life.
So you might not know this, but we sigh every 5 minutes. And what do we mean by a sigh? We mean a breath that is deeper than your average breath. So we're normally kind of relatively shallow breathing, but every 5 minutes we will take a deeper breath. And we may not be aware of this deeper breath, but we need it. So anybody who, for whatever reason, cannot sigh will suffer breathing issues and ultimately, dare I say it, would ultimately die without being able to sigh. And this was seen in early iron lung patients. So the iron lung was inflating and deflating these patients' lungs, but they weren't sighing. And what they found was this deterioration of lung capacity over time, and ultimately these individuals experienced those breathing issues and didn't survive without the sigh. And so let's look at why and what's happening. Now, our lungs are not like two big balloons. There is a network of tubes, and those tubes lead into smaller tubes, and along those tiny, tiny tubes are these little air sacs, sometimes at the end and sometimes partway along these tubes. And these air sacs are called alveoli. And this is where breathing really happens. This is where the exchange of gases occurs between the air in our lungs and the blood in the capillaries around those alveoli. And so these little sacs, these alveoli, have a very thin lining because we need to allow the air to exchange across that membrane. And to keep them mobile and lubricated, they are liquid lined, and that makes them like tiny little balloons that somebody's got water in them, and they can get a bit sticky, and so they regularly get kind of gummed up and don't inflate. And as they get like that, it reduces our lung capacity. So what you'll find if somebody isn't sighing is that their lung capacity will reduce and reduce and reduce, because what the sigh does is places pressure into those alveoli to pop them back into action again. And so if you can't sigh, then you've only ever got alveoli kind of going out of action and more of them going out of action over time. With the sigh, we're able to then kickstart all of those alveoli that are not in action and bring them back online again and back working again, back inflating and deflating again. To give you an idea of the size of these little sacs, these alveoli, I'll let you know how many there are. Wait for it. There are 480 million in each of our lungs. That's obviously an average. Some people will have bigger lungs and bigger lung capacity and more or less. But yeah, that was an average that they found in a scientific research paper. When we're stressed, we move to shallow breathing. And when we're breathing shallowly, then we're not using our full lung capacity and the carbon dioxide levels in our body raise. And then when we experience the raise in carbon dioxide levels, that gives us that sensation of anxiety. And we can reverse all of this by sighing to open up those alveoli that have collapsed, use the full surface area of all of the alveoli in our lungs, and make sure that we are discharging that CO2 and reduce our CO2 levels. So the term, the physiological sigh, is just a term that's used to describe how we naturally sigh, and that's what I've shared with you before and I'll share with you again. And so what that looks like is a double inhale and then a long exhale, Ideally, you do the double inhale through the nose and the long exhale through the mouth. If for whatever reason your nose is blocked or you can't breathe through your mouth, it's okay to not do it quite like that. But yeah, ideally 2 inhales through the nose and 1 exhale through the mouth. Now, the first inhale through the nose will take you more or less to your regular breathing capacity. So you're breathing normally, which will be relatively shallowly. So you breathe in your normal breath, and then the second inhale is to really expand into the full capacity of your lungs. So I want a big second inhale. And then you've really pushed the pressure into your lungs, and then that long, slow exhale out. The long exhale changes the pressure in the chest cavity, and that in turn sends a signal down to the brain to slow the heart rate down. And as we experience that signal and the slowing of the heart rate, we experience that as very calming. So we'll experience this physiological sigh as a very calming exercise to practice. So once again, we're going to take 2 sips in through the nose and a long sigh out through the mouth. Another one of those, 2 sips in through the nose and a long sigh out through the mouth. One more for good luck and a little bit more calming. So that's a little deep dive into the physiological sigh. I hope you've enjoyed learning a bit more about that technique and practicing that technique with me. And I will be back next week with a regular length episode, and in a couple of weeks' time with the next mini episode. All right, hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks.
These podcasts are here to help you manage your stress and burnout, and your feedback is really valuable. So please rate this podcast and also drop me a note with any questions, suggestions, or feedback that you might have. One of the most common questions I get asked is, where should I start? And I believe that the best place for you to start is to learn how to soothe your nervous system. I've created a free download with instructions for 5 different ways that you can do just this, and all of them work pretty much instantly. It's called the Essential Toolkit for Management Consultants. You can download it now at www.hannahholden.co.uk/essential. One last thing, it's the legal language. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of your doctor, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional.